All right. Well, welcome to our webinar today. We are excited to have Kelsey Ramerth with us with NRCS and presenting and talking about this Organic Management Standard 823. But before we do that, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Dr. Angela Jackson, and I'm the South Dakota Specialty Producers Association Organic Transition Ag Advisor, long title there. I'm in Vermillion, South Dakota, and I've been in this role for a little bit now and just kind of overseeing as this new program gets off the ground that I'm really excited about, which is the Organic Transition Initiative Regenerative Agriculture Pathway Program. So thank you for joining us on this informative webinar that's hosted by the South Dakota Specialty Producer Association. This is designed to be an informative webinar, just kind of rolling out what this program is, and we'll have an opportunity for a Q&A at the end. We're going to be looking at an overview of what the program entails and some key features of the Organic Management Standard 823 and what that program is like in South Dakota. And then we're also going to be exploring some basic strategies. Kelsey's going to be talking about how do you get started? What does that process look like with NRCS if you're interested in enrolling in that program? And then we'll have an opportunity at the end for Q&A. There is a chat within the Zoom, so a couple of logistics and housekeeping things. Morgan will be monitoring the chat. If anyone has questions, feel free to drop those in the chat. I will mention too, this segment has been funded under a Conservation Collaborative Cooperative Agreement NR 246740 between the Natural Resources Conservation Service and the South Dakota Specialty Producers Association to promote sustainable agriculture practices and environmental stewardship. Its contents are solely responsibility of the South Dakota Specialty Producers Association and does not necessarily represent the official views of the USDA or NRCS. However, we have NRCS folks on this call, so I'm happy to hear from you if you have questions or comments about this. I'll just kind of get started talking a little bit about the Regenerative Agriculture Pathway Program and what that is. So this is a new initiative that aims to equip producers with the knowledge and skills to adopt sustainable agriculture practices. Like I mentioned, the South Dakota Specialty Producers Association entered into this Conservation Collaborative Cooperative Agreement with NRCS to support this initiative to promote regenerative and organic practices within the state. By adopting these practices, producers can improve soil health, reduce erosion, and enhance water quality. These practices can also lead to increased biodiversity, improved crop yields, and greater resilience to climate change. I'll talk a little bit more about some of the services that we will provide after I give a quick introduction of who I am. Some of you may or may not know my work in South Dakota, but I've been in the organic space for about 20 years. My farm, Prairie Sun Organics, is regenerative certified organic through the Regenerative Organic Alliance, and I have been working in this space for about 5 years within regenerative and organic certification. I have about 15 years of organic farming experience and 16 years as an organic inspector, and I've been in higher ed for about 20 years. I have experience with the National Organic Program, the EU, the Canadian Organic Standards, as well as the Regenerative Organic Certification Standards, and I've been involved with program management within the ag field for about 10 years. So a lot of experience there, but I wanted to share that just to let folks know that, I've been doing this for a while and I'm super excited to be able to move from a role of inspecting and auditing and kind of overseeing programs to being able to work with farmers one-on-one. So like I mentioned, the program aims to equip producers with the knowledge and skills to adopt organic and agricultural practices. And I'm just going to put a statistic here that South Dakota has about 42 million acres of farmland and only about 155,000 acres is organic. And our goal with this program is to increase those organic acres to 200,000 by 2028. So I know that's a lofty goal, but I think one of the reasons why it hasn't taken off up to this point is because South Dakota often lacked the kind of boots on the ground assistance and help that a lot of producers were looking for. And up to now, the resources that were available to them were often costly. So to hire the cost of a consultant could be several $100s. With this program, all these services that I'm going to be sharing with you are all completely free. So one of the things that really excited me about being a part of this, that I've been trying to advocate for in our state for many years, is to have free support for farmers and producers who are trying to move this direction and just need more guidance and understanding, because it does come with quite a bit of paperwork and record keeping, and oftentimes that can be quite daunting for producers. And so just having somebody who has walked this space for many, many years be able to sit down one-on-one and be able to kind of walk through some of the the best practices, some of those areas where I've seen great success, and also being able to share some areas where I've seen farmers not do so well, and where they were not prepared or underprepared for inspection, or what the whole process looked like. Because sometimes it may not be that you don't have the record keeping down. It may be that you're experiencing year after year crop losses, and you're trying to figure out, okay, what's going on here? And on my farm or in my soil that's producing some of these problems. And that's where being a part of this program is also beneficial, because you'll have access to experts in the field. So through a number of different educational resources, we'll be able to connect with experts in the field, some in South Dakota, some outside South Dakota. So our program goals are around education, providing educational opportunities through opportunities like this, through webinars, as well as the two annual meetups that we're going to have, an opportunity for an annual conference, which is coming up in February, and then a larger fall meetup that we're planning on the eastern side of the state. So these educational opportunities will be both West River and East River, and there'll be some in person, and there'll be some via online opportunities like videos and webinars. There'll also be opportunity for networking. Like I mentioned, we have these monthly organic chapter meetings that are coming. We have a Facebook group. We have a Google listserv. We have newsletters that will be going out on a quarterly basis. And then we have the annual conference and the opportunity for face-to-face meetups around the state. Technical assistance, this is probably the most exciting thing about this program, is the one-on-one opportunity. Over the course of many years, I have been on hundreds and hundreds of organic farms in 36 different countries, and I've seen a lot of different farming systems, some that are super small backyard operations, all the way up to multi-thousand acre operations that on a global scale. So having that technical assistance, being able to have somebody just understand different soil types, understanding the different types of cropping systems, which differ greatly between East River and West River, and just being able to maybe talk those out, or just being a resource hub, just being able to connect you with experts in that area. Maybe it's a crop that you're looking at growing that you haven't grown before, and you're like, okay, what do I need? What are some things that I need to look about? What are some companion plantings or cover crops that will work with this type of a crop rotation plan, and just things like that. Having great conversations about what works, what might work, and maybe what might not work on your farm as you're making the transition. And then the other part of this is producing resource guides, both electronically as well as in print format. So currently we really don't have an organic farmer resource guide in South Dakota that's specifically geared for an environment where producers are having to operate within these strict criteria for inputs and things like that. So we're hoping to have a guide produced here very soon that not only will include opportunities for regenerative resources, but for certified organic ones as well. And then, like I mentioned, just opportunities for communication with other like-minded farmers and experienced farmers around the state of South Dakota and beyond. So kind of the key that when I'm thinking about, organic and regenerative, I kind of have a key statement that I would like to share. And and this is something that I feel is really reflective of what we're trying to achieve here. So at the heart of regenerative organic practices lies soil regeneration, organic standards, and ethical stewardship. Principles that not only enhance biodiversity and strengthen ecosystems, but also empower rural communities with sustainable, resilient food systems and farms. And so really when I think about three key words to describe this, I think of soil health, resiliency, and ethical stewardship. And so you're probably wondering, what does ethical stewardship mean? Well, ethical stewardship is what I look at as doing the right thing. So even though you could, operate within this really strict confinement of the organic standards, which oftentimes don't have specific parameters around specific ways to manage crop rotations or soil health. I mean, they tell you you have to do those things, but they don't really tell you how to do those things, right? So ethical stewardship is about making ethical decisions about how you do things. So in organics, I know we've all heard there's organics isn't the organic standards and the organic movement isn't perfect, right? You've all heard there's things that have happened, and it brought into question the ethics of it. And so what I really see regenerative as is the ethical piece. It's that piece of being able to steward your soil and your farm well, being able to implement animal welfare practices or practices that kind of go above and beyond the organic standards, and then thinking about the ethical management of the people that are a part of your organization and part of your farm. And then, just kind of thinking about the whole idea of how to ethically steward this whole process, right? So within organics, we have things in our toolbox, but I like to kind of go a step beyond that and think outside the box on how we could do things better and feed the soil and feed the plants from the bottom up instead of the top down. And so that's my thoughts on that. And, I've also been kind of thinking about in this process, how can we incorporate a regenerative standard that has credibility and value in the marketplace? So as you're thinking about moving this direction, you're probably asking yourself, well, what or how does this benefit me in the marketplace? Well, there are regenerative organic standards out there. And I've evaluated a lot of them, and I myself made a choice to go with the one organization, Regenerative Organic Alliance. There's others out there. All of them, if you look at them closely, have principles around ethical stewardship. And I think that's what this is really exciting about this program, is because it is strengthening our families, it's strengthening our communities, and it's helping us to kind of go beyond where we are sitting at with just the standard with the organic standards in general. And just an example of one of those that we do on our farm that I've seen in some of the regenerative practices is the use of pollinator crops, right? So we know that some organic inputs are harmful to pollinators. There's some that are approved for use in organic that unfortunately are harmful to beneficial insects. So a regenerative or ethical practice would be not to use any inputs that are harmful to pollinators on your farm, right? So partnering with the Xerces Society or looking at their list of approved inputs on their website would be going above and beyond organic. You're taking and making an ethical stance that, hey, I want to protect pollinators on my farm. I want to protect the bees. I want to do good things. And so even within organics, we are faced sometimes with choices of, should I use this product or should I not? And what is the impact to the environment? Okay, because it does, those choices are there within the organic sphere as well. And then resiliency, this is a powerful word because what we've noticed on our farm since we've moved to regenerative practices and we've reduced tillage on our farm is that our soil is much more resilient. Our farm overall is way more resilient to these massive climate change episodes. Like we got 11 inches of rain in June. in Vermilion. And it was amazing how our farm recovered quickly from that. And I attribute that to how we manage our soil and how we manage our land. We're more resilient to those unexpected events that hit our farm, and it's made us better farmers as a result, by the decisions that we're making on our farm. And then also the soil health piece of this, which I can't underestimate. I love being able to go out on my farm and get into the soil and do what I call a soil analysis, looking at what's going on like underneath that topsoil. I recently had the opportunity to go over to a conventional cornfield and dig some holes. And my husband and I dug 18 holes and didn't find a single earthworm. And we went 8 inches down. I came to my farm, and as soon as I put the spade in the ground, that first hit, we turned over the soil, it was loaded with earthworms and all kinds of living organisms and life. And that, my husband and I were just like, wow. I mean, that is a telltale, like, what are we trying to do? We're trying to take this, and the way I described it to my husband is like, this soil is dead and there's nothing in it. And we're looking at each other going, there's no living life in this soil. And from this conventional cornfield. And then we're like, wow, it really dawned on us like the importance of regenerative and organic farming, and some of the benefits that we see are not on the surface, they're actually underneath the surface. And that's where we're going to be looking with this program and building that out. So part of this process as we're kind of moving along with this program is also helping you understand the Organic Management Standard 823. So as a person myself who's taken advantage of some of the NRCS programs through the EQIP program, it has been very helpful for us as organic farmers. We've signed up again with NRCS to take for the opportunity to be involved in some of those programs through the Clay County office. We're excited to be able to do this again and partner with NRCS in a bigger way and help you as farmers understand better, how do you do this along with the Organic Management Standard 823. So I just wanted to kind of walk through some quick administrative steps that, not in any particular order, but these are some of the things that as you're walking through these steps in this program, these are the kind of the big 6 things we're going to be looking at. Reviewing the USDA NOP and regenerative standards, reviewing the organic management implementation practices as set out by the NRCS to be a part of this program, connecting to technical assistance and cost share programs, whether it's through NRCS or FSA or some other government programs or even NGOs. Complete a conservation plan in cooperation with NRCS, and then developing a regenerative and organic system plan. So if you're going for organic certification, you're going to have to develop an organic system plan, whether it includes a transition plan or not. Having a plan in place, even if it's hypothetical during that transition process, is very helpful. So whether you're a farmer looking to expand your acres or moving from just organic into regenerative, or maybe you're adding some acres, understanding how to incorporate the regenerative pieces into the organic system plan is something that we can have a conversation about. We can help you with that. And then the big one is the crop marketing strategy. And this is the one that most folks ask me about, because they're like, hey, if I do all this work, if I'm farming organic and regenerative, is there a market for this product? Can I make this claim? And I'm going to mention that absolutely, yes, you can. You can start going into marketplaces now, like I think like Hy-Vee and the co-op in Sioux Falls and different places. You'll start to see the regenerative and organic certification label on products. And that is one of the fastest growing areas within organic claims right now. So I think there's definitely an opportunity to get certified, to partner up with a certification body, to get the certifications, and then be able to carry this claim all the way through into the marketplace and realize some of those market premiums. And with that, that's the end of my piece of this, but I'll open it up. And if anybody has any questions, I don't know if there's any questions in the chat, or maybe we'll do that at the end, right, Morgan? We'll open it up for chat at the end in Q&A.
Right now we just have one attendee with their hand up. So Robin,
Okay.
if you want to unmute and ask your question now. Maybe it was an accident.
Okay.
If we want to move on, we can go with that and then give Robin another
Okay.
opportunity at the end.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay. With that, I'm going to turn the mic over to Kelsey and let her introduce herself and then what her role is with NRCS. And she's going to be sharing with us a little bit more about the Organic Management Standard 823. So welcome, Kelsey. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. I am Kelsey Ramerth. I'm the acting state urban conservationist for South Dakota NRCS right now for about another month. And then it will be back to Rachel Lawton, who's been in this position permanently and is the permanent urban conservationist for the state. So I'm kind of just substitute teaching right now. I have very poor internet in the office, so I'm gonna turn my video off, save a little bandwidth, and share my screen. That working, everyone?
Yeah. Is he good?
Perfect. Okay, so any NRCSers that are on that saw Marcia's technical training Thursday a few weeks ago, these slides are going to look familiar to you. But I'm just going to give you a little overview of NRCS's interim practice standard 823, which is organic management. Maybe. Yes. Okay. So why 823? Why organic management? The number of farms that have been transitioning to organic has dropped significantly in the recent past, and USDA is hoping to provide additional support. The main focus and the regulations directly involved with organic practices typically involve maintaining or improving natural resources through different conservation practices, although it might not be by name. But this makes it a really good fit with what NRCS can do. And so that is tying us with NRCS into the organic pathway. 823, the organic practice, is broadening a previous interim standard that did not have a lot of success. And it's including all phases of organic management, not just the transition. So that was a pitfall of the previous standard. Because organic is not just going to be related to the program, it's a lot more broad, and this 823 practice is hoping to capture all of that. NRCS wise, it can be contracted through the Organic Transition Fund pool, but it can also be contracted with other programs and other fund pools, depending on how our financial year turns out. So that also removes some limitations that were there previously. And rather than just change all of our practice standards to have an organic component, this 823 allows us to make kind of a whole package and encompass all of the activities needed for that organic management. What is new, what's unique, why? It's a huge practice. It's really, really broad. It's going to require a full conservation plan evaluating all of SWAPA HE, so soil, water, air, plants, animals, human energy. The H and the E are missing here, but they're included. Older planners will recognize this term as an RMS plan. So for producers transitioning to organic, they need to learn and adjust to a whole new system of management. And basically they're starting completely fresh with a new toolbox. So the goal of this 823 is this practice will give NRCS an opportunity to support that learning process as well as the other practices that might be underneath the umbrella of just moving to organic or all of that learning. That will extend our technical support to the learning and the management. This is very much reflected in the payment scenarios, which are big and hefty, and it does have a component included in it for producer education. 823 might also have, depending on the situation, foregone income payments. So that is a possibility to reimburse producers for yield losses as they complete the transition to organic to the new system and as they go through this learning process. So there is a possibility for foregone income if necessary. 823, the way it's written, also supports our natural resource activities that might not be written into NRCS standards. So it's incorporating other USDA organic information and supports things that might not fit exactly into our existing scenarios, such as like different flavors of composting, harvest of wild crops or foraged crops, and working on different means for outdoor access for livestock. So this 823 will give us ways to quantify and document those in a way that NRCS has not before, and also in a way that the organic program has not before. So whose job is what? The producer will be responsible for maintaining compliance with their organic status, whether that's transitioning to organic, whether that's certified or exempt. The producer will be responsible for that the entire time. The organic certifier's responsibilities will be to verify the compliance of the organic producer, they're certified, and those applying for certification, and making sure that they meet the USDA organic rules for that. NRCS planners are going to be responsible for the conservation planning and ensuring the criteria of the conservation practice standards, making sure those are met. There is a tech note for this, and it's gonna be bulky, but it basically just describes the activities that are most commonly implemented. So kind of hits the ones on the top that are going to come up the most. How do they address natural resource concerns? How are they the same? How are they different? Or how they might go beyond existing NRCS practice standards. So the goal of the tech note, of course, which NRCS staff, you will know this, the tech note is supposed to give you the practical knowledge to do your job. It's supposed to give you the starting point for all of this information. And it'll give you the knowledge to help the organic producer implement the 823 practice and in turn meet organic regulations, satisfy NRCS conservation criteria, and hopefully fully meet the farm's stewardship goals. That's a tour of the tech note. So you can see there's quite a few different sections of it, and it should cover it quite thoroughly. 823 can be paired with other practices. It should be paired with other practices when when major changes are needed, such as switching to an entirely new cropping system that requires all new soil testing or changing all of your input. The example here is nutrient management 590 and 595, which is pest management. So that would incorporate a significant amount of changes on those topics in addition to the 823 or working with the 823. 823 can be contracted alone if there are just minor tweaks or very small systemic changes that don't need significant overhaul of education and processes. Other practices that might most commonly be paired with 823 are going to be, of course, crop rotation, cover crops, and then also field border and conservation cover. So it is the planner's job, and ask for help when you need it, to pick the closest scenario available for 823 to match the level of activities that the producer is going to be completing, even if it's different. So even if those examples are not exactly right, do pick the closest scenario to go with that. And this also, you might be having to select a scenario with foregone income. So just pay attention that you're picking the correct scenario when you're going through these. The general guidelines, there's simple crops, that would be those kind of what I think of as the big fields commodities. You have a combine, you're good to go. Wheat, corn, soybeans, hay. They're simple because information can be applied broadly across the category completely. The complex categories would include varied vegetables, melons, potatoes, sweet potatoes, nuts, fruits, berries, what we typically would think of as more specialty commodities. So this is no different than anything that we're doing for other practices in our CSers. You're going to meet with your producer at the farm, and this is a little different for some of the new staff. The full farm conservation plan, the RMS plan, you're just going to go through all of the 9 steps. And you need to pay attention, or, part of your planning process needs to include checking with the producer. Are you transitioning to organic? Are you certified? Are you exempt? If you are transitioning, what is the transition timeline? And this is, this 9 steps of planning, as we know, is going to be when we check what are your resource, when we ask them, what are your resource concerns? And when we use our resources to see what are the resource concerns, find out what their conservation goals are and what are their goals in meeting the organic regulations. So this is just a chart, what I mentioned before. Example 1, you can do 823 alone. You can do 823 with other practices. You can combine 823 with other practices and SEMAs, so it can get very complicated if it needs to. Ideally, as it says, the planning would come first. So that's when you would pick out what you need. Do you need additional practices? Is the 823 alone going to cut it? And you develop your full conservation plan, and then you would complete the implementation requirements of all of the standalone practices and the 823, depending on what situation you've found yourself in. For certifying the 823, you need to have the IR docs, the implementation requirements for the standalone practices. You need to document the activities that were completed on each of the IR docs. Having the same component on 2 separate payment scenarios does not necessarily mean that there's a duplicate payment. The scenarios aren't checklists, so make sure you're using the correct documents, you're using the standards, you're using the IR docs to make sure that you're getting the practice that you need when you're planning, especially, and then also when you're certifying. Make sure that you're not duplicating anything, but also make sure that you're covering everything that the producer needs. Ensure that the 823 criteria is met. Planners, it will not be your job to verify that inputs are complying with organic regulations. But planners should be just generally aware and be able to explain if the question comes up, that producers shouldn't be using prohibited substances, because that would be a violation of the 823 practice if they're transitioning. So just pay attention to that. I know that's hard to do. The producer should be signing the implementation requirement documents, just like we have them sign operation and maintenance. Just make sure that there's a high level of involvement on the producer's end for this, especially because this is such a big, broad practice. If you need to help the producer with their record keeping, etc., the baseline, that would be NRCS, but above the kind of generic and regular information that we have, that might be more of a question for other experts, that might be for Dr. Jackson, that might be for other people that they're working with, if that gets out of our NRCS realm, which it could very quickly. So there is a snippet of the IR doc for 823. So you can see it looks like a checklist and it feels like a checklist, but remember, it's not a checklist. And this would be how it looks if you're implementing other practices with it. So you would have, this example has the 340 for cover crop, 590 for nutrient management, that are also partnered with the 823. So just make sure that you get those as well. Planners, we've seen this a bajillion times. So that's our 9 steps of planning. And just make sure you break down each step. We're comfortable doing this on all scales, and it's the same for 823. So you can evaluate different resource concerns, problems on annual crops, perennial crops, on livestock that applies to this. Let's say if an annual crops, weed and pests is the focus, perennial crops might be biodiversity. For livestock, it might be pasture renovation. In step 3, we'll inventory our resources, and since this is an RMS plan, we are evaluating SWAPA plus H and E, everything in the CPA 52. So these are going to be big plans. Step 4, we use all of our assessment tools. So that might be Russell 2, that might be SCI, that might be a WAG, that might be WIN-PST, pasture condition score. We're familiar with all of these tools, and so that is going to be an easy part to incorporate. Step 5, we formulate our alternatives, and depending on different practices that are incorporated into this, that might get fairly complex, but it's nothing we haven't done before. Step 6, you evaluate your alternatives, and this is where you really involve the producer, make sure that they know that it's their plan and that they know and they've made the decision of where they're going. Make sure that that meets their goals for organic as well as for the NRCS program. Step 7, they're going to make their decisions. Step 8, implementation of the plan. Step 9, we get to the fun part when we get to evaluate the plan and decide if it was effective or not. Make sure that all parties are involved in this, and make sure that the follow-up is complete, because that is generally going to be very important when you have such a complex plan with so many different facets involved. And Dr. Jackson, I think I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, thank you, Kelsey. We did have a question. And the question is, do we still already have to be certified USDA organic if OMS 823 incorporates all NOP standards? And I think you kind of said that if they're operating under the exempt allowance, that it's okay, right? They don't have to be certified. Or do they have to be on a pathway to certification, Kelsey?
The practice, the 823 practice, can be used by folks in any part of the process. So they don't have to be in organic status. They don't have to be transitioning. So I think that's valid.
Okay. So hopefully, Greg, that answered your question.
That makes sense? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so you don't have to be actively certified organic to participate in the program. You can be transitioning or adding land. You could be operating under the exempt if you're a smaller operation. So as I see that Morgan's bringing in the participants, does anybody have any other questions? We're going to open it up now for the last few minutes for Q&A. I will mention, since this is also farmer facing, that with the NRCS Organic Transition Initiative and other programs, they do take applications year round, but there are deadlines in which they are accepted. So I believe it's October 31st was the deadline for 2024, but they're accepting applications for the next program period. So is that right, Kelsey? So you'd be
Yes.
accepting them up until October of next year for the following year's program
Yep,
period.
so it was November 1st was the deadline for
It
this
is,
year.
okay.
You can walk in on any day and put in an
Right.
application with the NRCS. It'll just sit and wait until the next open period. Occasionally additional signups will open up and that might fit in, so it doesn't hurt to have your application sit in the office and wait. But yes, it's typically in the fall, and that's when our fiscal year turns over. So.
Yeah. We have several folks on the call, so I didn't know if we had any other questions or comments.
We have a few. So Greg, I see you have your hand up. So if you want to ask your question, and then we'll move to the chat.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Kelsey, I'm confused. I've never heard of this OMS 823, but also you threw in 590, 595, and a few others. And I don't know. You start and stop. That's all you would have to do, or do you have to do all of these numbered programs in order to be NRCS organic certified, organic management certified? It's rather confusing right now.
Yes, it is. I absolutely agree. So the 823, which is the NRCS number that we've assigned to the activity of the organic practice, is an umbrella right now. So it can stand alone if there are not significant changes to be made, and it can be, there can be a synergy. It can be combined with other activities that we can do through the NRCS already. So that 590, that's nutrient management. 595, that's pest management. 340 is cover crop. The numbers are just titles that we give to these practices for our computer program, basically. So you can combine those if they're needed, if they're warranted, if it's important to your operation. Those can be combined with the 823, the organic practice. They do not have to be. 823 can be on its own. And likewise, nutrient management can be done on its own. Cover crops can be done on its own too.
Yeah. So these, Kelsey, all these programs, are they largely cost share? They're to assist farmers financially, right? I mean, these are like program funds that help farmers to implement these practices, pay for their education, pay for their time to do this work. So, so Greg, kind of in the 30,000-foot view of things, why would somebody even want to do this? As an organic farmer myself, we love the benefits financial benefits that we get on our farm, because we're able to access funds that we wouldn't be able to, and it helps us to offset some of these costs for the extra things that we're doing. So that's, we work closely with it. We also participate in the cost share assistance program through the FSA office, where 75% of our organic certification fee is up to $750 per scope are refunded back or reimbursed back to us. So there's these different incentives that you can access, right? These programs you can access through the USDA, FSA, NRCS to help us as organic producers or transitioning producers to kind of lift some of the financial load during that transition period, to help you a little bit financially. So that's why you would want to do it, Greg. It's not a separate certification. These are implementation practices. We call it a pathway because what it does is it's a pathway towards helping you to develop an economically viable, stable, organic farming practice that you can do long-term. That, because my goal is that if you exit the program, that you will continue to use these practices on your farm because they're extremely beneficial. I mean, we've been using them on our farm, and I mean, it was life-changing for our soil. So our goal with this program is that after you're finished with the program and you've transitioned, you're ready to move on to the next step of being on your own and finding, your own market and doing your own thing, that you can then move into a space with these products and be able to carry the regenerative claim into the marketplace, which is what buyers are looking for, that you'll be ready to make that transition and move straight into a regenerative certification or organic certification, what that looks like for you as a farmer. So it just gives you, at the end, it could give you more market access. Not that it guarantees that, but it's a good segue, a good pathway to getting that type of a certification. We had a question from Charlie. We want to open it up into the,
We have a couple. So
Okay.
I'm going to read two that kind of apply at the same time, both from Charlie. Does this program apply to only first-time organic farmers, or does this allow for additional acres going on to transition organic? And as a follow-up, is a producer using parallel production on other conventional acres and intends to keep those acres in conventional eligible for this program?
So this would not, additional acres, I believe, are appropriate for using the 823 organic practice. And as far as the NRCS planning process goes, our Environmental Quality Incentives Program, which is commonly called the EQIP program, only looks at acres that when you come into the office, you decide to work with us, you decide the footprint that we're looking at. The Conservation Stewardship Program, which is the CSP program, looks at all of the acres that you own or operate that are in one system. So it depends. Everybody's favorite answer.
Yeah, so I'm thinking, so with Charlie's question, I mean, we are not first-time organic farmers, and we are enrolling in this program, and we've been organics and, for a long time, for over a decade. So yeah, allowing additional acres going into organic transition, I understand that if you're transitioning in more acres or bringing in more acres, that like Kelsey was saying, you get to determine the footprint and the acres that you want to enroll in the program, right, Kelsey? It's kind of your choice. Yeah. Do we have any other questions?
That's it right now, but everyone has the ability to unmute and ask their questions, or you can drop them in either the chat or the question and answer feature.
I have a question, is Greg Stack. How do we start? Who do we apply, online, in person, at some office, or?
So the typical process with NRCS is just walk in and say hi. I'm sure you're familiar with your local Farm Service Agency, FSA office. So next time you go into FSA, just walk over to NRCS. It'll be the other side of the building, and it's the door that people don't usually take. In our office, you come in and you usually go left. Come right for once and check out the NRCS. Just come and say hi. And if your local staff is not familiar with this, which is going to be hard because this is brand new, they will know who to get in contact with to get the ball rolling with you. So typically you come in, we start off with getting some maps, talking about your operation, and then we can go from there.
I'm not sure how many farmers we have on the call, but if there's any farmers here that have any additional thoughts or comments on just generally what you think about the program. If you think this might be something helpful for South Dakota producers, you feel free to chime in. We've been kind of planning this for some time, you know, as a group, and I'm excited to actually see it come to fruition. I think we started this back in March, Kelsey, or April. We were talking about this, and we finally got it together. So I'm really excited to see that we're able to do something like this, and I really like the word pathway, because that's really what it is. It's helping producers find a path forward that might have more economic benefits for them, and also at the same time has these, but I go back to my word, ethical practices built into it, because it kind of, like Kelsey was saying, there's some additional things that's maybe not exactly spelled out in the organic standards, that in the implementation practices that you'll be walking through with NRCS if you go that route, and depending on the program you sign up for. So, but I'm also happy to help anyone who has questions beyond this webinar. If you have questions or comments, just feel free to reach out to me. I'll throw back up the slide with my contact information, and I'm happy to meet you on your farm. I actually have got 3 farm visits for this program in the last 2 weeks. It's really taken off. I'm so excited. So yeah, Kelsey, you're like 3. I have another one this coming up next week. And so excited to be working with all of you. So don't hesitate to reach out to me. I am available on Saturdays as well. I'm pretty flexible with my hours. So if you happen to have an off-farm job and you can only meet on Saturdays, that's fine too. So totally flexible there.
Charlie, I saw that you had unmuted. Did you have another question or comment?
Well, I think I'll probably keep the comment kind of to myself a little bit because right now the organic market is very suppressed, and a lot of producers, even existing ones, probably won't be in business for another year or two. And so, you know, how are we going to address new producers coming on when existing ones can't even make it? And I have a particular personal bias against parallel production. I know that it's allowed under NOP, but it doesn't speak to the basic essence of what being a certified organic farmer, in my belief, should be. And so when that footprint of that farm comes into an NRCS office, I'd like to see the entire operation have to be certified organic, and not just bringing in certain quarter sections or particular parcels out of that entire operation. That it should be the entire operation.
Yeah, thanks, Charlie. Yeah, when you start thinking about how to manage a parallel production in organic, it gets complicated really fast, because you're having to deal with, cross-contamination concerns and commingling concerns, and it comes with a very complex organic system plan for sure, when you're trying to manage both. And yeah, thanks, Charlie, for your comments regarding the markets. Those of you who have kind of been in our last couple of webinars, we have been talking about market and market access a lot this year. And it is a concern for, a lot of folks in the organic space. But I feel like the pathway forward is the new regenerative claim. Those of you who've seen it, it's the hot topic, it's the hot term, it's out there now in the marketplace. And while it does offer an additional claim that if you're interested in accessing that particular claim, there's a few different claims out there that are available. I've chosen to align with one so I could carry their claim on our products that we sell, and consumers are starting to recognize that claim, and it's helping our sales. So if it's something you're interested in, looking at taking this all the way through the certification, Charlie does that option too, is this being able to educate the consumer on these practices. and what that means, that we're being really differentiating ourselves in the marketplace, but that doesn't always necessitate to improving our bottom line. So it's a lot about educating consumers, but we have a lot of work to do, Charlie, in that space for sure.
Well, this is perhaps beyond the realm of this webinar. And it's
Yeah.
meant to be maybe a little bit of a political question, but we've seen the slippage probably in organic in South Dakota in recent years. And I think a lot of it is we don't have viable end use for organic raised in this state. And, the basis of shipping a lot of this production out of state creates a cost and freight factor that we're at a economic disadvantage to those organic growers in Iowa, North Dakota, Minnesota, Nebraska, Wisconsin.
Yeah. I think we're going to be tackling a few of those. I do want to mention that we do have more opportunities for farmer buyer and farmer brand meetups with this program. One that we're going to be working on 2 next year, one in Freeman, South Dakota in April, and then another one in the fall. And so we're going to continue to expand this conversation because it's really important. Charlie brought up some really good points. So that's another benefit of being a part of these networking groups, is having a collective voice at the table when we're trying to grow the market, or get people to recognize, the great things that we're doing here and in that space. But it's not going to happen with just one or two voices at the table. And that's why being a part of these monthly organic chapter meetings are beneficial as well, if you can participate in those. And those are the second Wednesday of every month at 3 p.m. and they are done over Zoom. Those are virtual. And then we have our Google group as well, and our Facebook group. So if you're interested in joining any of those, we'll be happy to add you to those listservs. You can just email us. I believe, Morgan, you dropped the email address in the chat, as well as how to sign up for our newsletter. And with that,
PM Central.
yes, those are Central Time. And I believe that concludes our time today.